If you were to make a list describing your future state of health and how you desire your health to be and how you desire to live your life in the future, what would that look like? You may hear that and think that sounds silly, but it's not. If you were to seriously think for just a moment what you want your health to look like, if you could define your health and your future on your own terms, how would your life be different? What would you look like? How would you feel? What would your energy levels be like? How would your rest be? How would your ability to do the things that you love to do? And where would you go? What would you say? How would you think? Hi, I'm Dr. Joel Feeman. And through the years, I've had the great privilege and honor of helping thousands of patients to feel better, to improve their life, to lose weight, and transform the way they think and live their lives and how they treat their bodies. And whether it be to help a patient to lose weight, or overcome a health challenge like my daughter who was able to overcome the most aggressive form of childhood leukemia, I learned that unless you address the underlying cause, your results are short-lived and minimal at best. For some people, they choose a career because they think it's a good way to make a living or support their family. For me, in my case, that wasn't the situation. Let me explain. For myself as a kid, I always thought of myself as pretty healthy. But I suffered from severe allergy and sinus problems to where even the slightest amount of dust or pollen would keep me trapped in the house while all the other kids are playing. Additionally, my mom and dad both suffered from headaches and migraines, and that's how we were introduced to chiropractic care. And for mom and dad, they thought chiropractic was about cracking necks and backs and making back pains and headaches go away. So they could see, well, you know what, maybe it can't help me with my headaches, but we have 7 kids. How's that supposed to help them? They don't have symptoms, or maybe they have a symptom, but they didn't think it was chiropractic related. My entire family from that time began receiving chiropractic care as our primary source of health care. And so although many people tend to think chiropractic is about back pain and neck pain, and truthfully most chiropractors do as well, I never grew up thinking of it like that. I grew up knowing chiropractic as that's just the way it is. We would always go to the chiropractor, we would get adjusted, and while everybody else was sick and suffering, they were going to the doctor all the time, we never did that. We had a different model of healthcare, and that truthfully is all I knew as a kid from the point of 4 years old onward. And truthfully, it wasn't until years later when I started to realize that my health was the most valuable asset I had in this world. But I knew enough, although I didn't understand the principles and philosophies, and I didn't understand human physiology and anatomy enough, but at 9 years old, I made that conscious decision that, why would I ever want to take a drug? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose health any way I possibly can. Think about this. As a child growing up where my mom would have severe, headaches and migraines, if you know from experience, then you know firsthand how that can alter or change your life. And it's not just the person who's suffering from the headache or the migraine, but I know as a child, we had 7 kids in my family, but to learn how to be a child when dad's at work and mom's home, and we're trying to learn how to be kids, but yet we had to do it in absolute silence. Even to this day, I can run up and down stairs, and unless there's a creak in the stair, you can't hear me. And that was because we had to learn how to live our lives in silence. So my mom perhaps would be upstairs in her bedroom with the door shut, the drapes pulled, and maybe a pillow with an ice pack on her face. And see, so many times that's what's happened to people. Whether it be a headache or a migraine or just some other type of debilitating, or compromising way of living life because of symptoms, conditions, or diseases, that's affecting a lot of people. And not only does it affect the kids, but what does that also do to your sleep patterns, your energy levels, how you process and deal with, maybe a spouse or a loved one? Are we short with them because of the way we are feeling at that time? And then how is that affecting their life? And so thankfully, growing up, my chiropractor was one of the best in the world. He had one of the largest, most successful practices. And what he taught mom and dad and even us as kids was he taught us the principles of what health was and how to get health and how to stay healthy. We never knew chiropractic as, cracking necks and backs. We just knew that that was just the way to live our lives. That was the way to maintain good health. And so although I didn't understand all those principles, I understood enough to where it just made sense to me that my spine and my nervous system controlled everything in my body. And so in order for my body to heal at its very best, Well, it makes sense that the nervous system has to be interference-free so that the brain and the body can communicate the way it was designed and created to do so. And I thank God that our chiropractor, as a family, knew these principles enough to where he didn't chase symptoms. He focused on removing interferences because of the stresses of life so that our bodies could heal at their very best. Not that he did the healing, but that our bodies would do the healing the way we were created. As I continued to grow up, I thought for myself that as a career, I wanted to become an architect because I've always loved, drafting and drawing things, and I love precision. But it wasn't until then, I was about 15 or 16 years old, that I felt like I was being called to chiropractic. And it was because I realized at that time for myself to live a fulfilled life, I had to be serving people, I had to be helping people. And what better way to do that than through chiropractic, a way of living that I've grown to absolutely love. If you were to ask a friend or a family member about me, one of the things I'm sure they would tell you is that when I commit to something, I commit to it, and I embrace it, and I do what I can with excellence as unto the Lord. Not only have I lived this way when it comes to how I practice and care for patients, but this is how I do my best to live with everything in my life, whether it be my relationships or whatever for that matter. You see, even as a young teenager, when my friends would be out being teenagers, partying and horsing around, I would live my life differently to where I never did any of that stuff. Instead, I would always work and try to prepare for college. I would make sure that every class that I took, everything that I did, the people I hung around were all focused on helping me to be the best person that I could so I could grow into the calling that God had for my life. As a result, I also chose to wait for the perfect woman, my wonderful, amazing wife, Rachel. My wife, Rachel, and I started dating when we were juniors in high school, when we went to our first date at junior prom. A year and just a couple months later, the month out of high school, we got married. I then began my undergraduate studies at Ohio State University. It was about a year later then we moved down to Marietta, Georgia, so I could finish up my undergraduate studies and start the Doctor of Chiropractic program at Life University, which at the time was the largest, most renowned chiropractic college in the world. I'll never forget in my first class for the chiropractic program, when the professor who was up at the front, who was a retired chiropractor who was given back to the profession, he wanted to prove a point about chiropractic. And so what he did with a room of about 120 students, all who were just entering into the Doctor of Chiropractic program, is he asked for those students who've experienced chiropractic, who've not just experienced it, but even something simple, who have at least went to a chiropractor before, to stand up. And I was shocked with what I saw. Out of a room of about 120 students, there were less than 10 of us who stood up, who have even ever been under chiropractic care. Now for myself, I was under chiropractic care since I was 4 years old. I experienced that, I embraced it. To me, it was a calling, something that I felt pulled to be able to do, to be able to serve mankind by removing interferences and let the life flow from the brain down to the body. But what's so shocking to me was the fact that so many of those people who were there, so many of those students, those colleagues of mine, they've never experienced chiropractic, and so they made a decision to get into a profession not even knowing through experience what the profession was all about. And so it's not to say that these people will never become great chiropractors, but one of the things that I've noticed throughout my career, that in hanging around and training with the most elite chiropractors on the planet, is that most of the chiropractors who are really changing and impacting the world are the ones who got into it because they were called into it. They're the ones who had a level of experience that went far beyond just thinking, I'm going to go into a career, I want to be a doctor of chiropractic, I want to crack necks and backs. And it's not that that's a bad thing, it's just one of those things where when you feel called to something, you look at things and you live and you practice a completely different way because there's something inside of you that makes you get up every day and say, you know what, praise God that I get to do something that I love, that I get to do something that I can truly impact lives on a high measure. Please understand that you were created to be healthy. You have an innate wisdom within you that it knows how to mend and heal and organize and repair. You have this amazing potential to have a bright, healthy, vibrant future. But what you also have to remember is that with all the seemingly endless, stresses of life, with all the drugs and surgeries and chemicals and things that are basically an onslaught every single day, that what most people are doing for their health is just not working. It's not getting those kind of results. There's more heart disease and cancer and depression. There's more obesity and weight gain. There's more, sleep disorders, among an endless list of other things that continue to grow, despite the fact that we have more doctors and more hospitals and more people taking medications. We spend more now on our health, or quote health care than ever before in the history of the world, yet there are more people who again are living compromised lives, that it's not vibrant the way we're created to be able to live. You see, most people make the horrifying mistake where they base their health on how they feel. And this is despite the fact that the number of diseases and premature deaths, the number of reasons why people are taking medications every day, are from conditions known as silent killers. And so with any amount of logic or common sense, it doesn't make sense that we would do that. But yet that's still, even though that's been outdated now for decades, that method of treating people and caring for them, it's still the way most doctors practice and the way most patients live. And it's almost like it's the blind leading the blind in that case. And the same holds true with how chiropractic can be practiced. Sure, we're the best at dealing with things like neck pains and back pains and headaches and things of that nature. But to focus on a symptom means that we would have to focus on only a small percentage of the nervous system while completely ignoring the other 94% of the nerves that your body cannot feel, which means you can have pinching, irritation, and damage to 94% of the nerves, and you're never going to know it based off how you feel. Yet, that's how so many chiropractors practice, and that's how most patients view chiropractic, is based off of treating symptoms. And that can be one of the biggest deterring factors, in my opinion, than ever when it comes to how we treat our bodies and how we live our lives. Here's the thing. Your nervous system controls all function and all healing within your body. So if your nervous system controls all function and healing within your body, how do you know if you have interference in that nervous system? Well, we know it's not based off of just how you feel, but once again, although that's how most patients and most doctors will treat their bodies and their health, that system once again is so outdated. The research has clearly shown that that is not the best way to view or care for our health. Listen, if that model of healthcare worked, we wouldn't have more hospitals and more sickness and more disease. We wouldn't have more, money being spent on medications or people taking medications. We would have less of those things. So one would have to eventually ask the right questions in terms of what is health, and how do we know if we're on the right track to getting healthy, and how do we know what to do to be able to get healthy in the first place, or how to sustain great health. And so that's when we look at how we practice chiropractic, how we practice true health care. It has to come down to really what is it that you want and how you choosing to live your life. And if a person comes in to my office and they're happy with their belief that drugs and medications are the solution, well, there's nothing that I can do to help them with that. But if a person comes in and they say, you know what, doc, I know that there's something out there more for me. I know that there's got to be a better way to take care of myself. Well, those are the people that we love to be able to help, because those are the people who really want to be helped. Here's the thing. In order for me to really impact somebody's life and help them to overcome a particular health challenge, after seeing thousands of patients through the years, and with my level of experience, I have to always do what I feel is best. So what does that look like? Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like what most other doctors and chiropractors do. And the main reason for this is because I choose not to focus or be deterred by a symptom alone. We have to have a more objective approach and look at the big picture versus just look at the smaller picture. Allow me to explain. In years past, the greatest expense that most people would have in their lives would be maybe their home or their education. In today's world, however, the greatest expense that we'll have in our lives is poor health. It's medical debt that's associated with poor health. I mean, think of it. So many people, they work so hard their whole lives. In much of that work, they're having to work for health insurance that has nothing to do with building their health. And so now you have a dad working like crazy or a mom for health benefits, and then as a result, their kids are being raised for how many hours a week by somebody else because they're out working for health benefits that really have nothing to do with their health. Let alone the fact that they finally get to the point of retirement and look at the numbers. They're shocking when you see, unfortunately, how many people work so hard in their lives with these plans to retire and enjoy life, and they get to that place, and then all of a sudden they realize that, oh my goodness, my health is horrible, I can't do this anymore, and they end up either really sick, in and out of doctor's offices, or worse yet, they die prematurely, never really having the chance to embrace the vision, the dream, the purposes that they had of how they wanted to live and enjoy their life. So when you look at America today, the number one cause of bankruptcy is because of medical debt. That's right, when you look at the number one cause of bankruptcy in America today, it's because of poor health and medical debt. And guess what? Most people, not all, but most people who find themselves in that situation is because they follow that model where nobody sat down with them to take the time to teach them about health. And so they follow the same model of chasing symptoms. And they have this mentality that, well, if it's not broke, you can't fix it. In other words, what I do for my life and my health today, I feel good, so what is there to do? What should I do? Why even do anything? Instead of making an effort every single day to be a builder of life and health. Think about it simply. The word healthcare consists of two words, health, care, care for health. It's not confusing. So where in history did we get it to where we've redefined the words of healthcare to drugs and surgery instead of how we can, live a life of wellness and well-being and vitality? So when a person comes in, one of the first things that we have to do is we have to teach them the basics. We have to first ask them the question, what is it that you want? Do you want health? And most people will undeniably say, yes, doc, I want to be healthy. The next question then says, okay, then what is health? And that's where you almost see like this idea where people have, well, health is based off how I feel, but then as they start to recognize, well, that doesn't make any sense based off of the definition. Of course you want to feel good. We want you to feel good. So how do we care for our health? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize what is health. Because if we say that we want to be healthy, but we don't have an understanding of what health is, think of health for a moment like wealth. How many people have you heard of who win the lottery or they get an inheritance, but within a short amount of time, that money is gone because they never knew what it was like to steward that wealth. The same thing holds true with health. Oftentimes what happens is we have this approach where we cross our fingers and hope that we're healthy. We have that mentality once again that if it's not broke, you can't fix it. But that model, remember, is outdated and doesn't work. So if you're wanting health, then we have to learn what health is and how to become a builder of life and a builder of health. So what do I do in my office? Is that for everybody? And honestly, it's not. Some people really don't want to engage in their life and their health the way that we try with them. So you may be thinking, well, with what you do in your office, is that for everybody? And truthfully speaking, it's not. Some people want to continue chasing symptoms, and that's fine. That's just not what we do. Our focus is on health and healing. Rather than looking at how you doing today and tomorrow, we try to take the approach of how are you going to be for all your tomorrows. In other words, is there something you could do and learn, something simple and that's tangible that you can continue to build and improve your health over time so you can in fact live that healthy life like you say that you want. So when a person comes into my office looking for help, our goal is simple. Help them to gain health, to gain understanding about health so that they and their families can be healthy. If a person's coming in because they have an ache or pain, you have to also understand that I cannot in good conscience and ethically with my level of understanding and using the technologies that I have, if I can see that there's interference to the nervous system and not do everything that I can to help remove that interference, to allow life to flow more abundantly, that's not getting that patient optimal results, I can't do that and feel good about what I do every single day. I have to always make sure that my recommendations are what's best for that person, looking at the bigger picture, not just how a symptom is. You see, you always have to remember that your health is your choice. You get to choose how healthy you want to be. And sure, there are stresses in our lives that are seemingly endless and always bombarding our lives. But how you deal with those stresses and what you do to be a builder of health is really up to you. If you're wanting to maximize your health, the expression of life, to be able to position yourself in a way that you minimize the risks of heart disease and cancer and diabetes. One thing we know, simply put, is that when you take better care of yourself, you're more likely to be healthy than if you don't. Don't overcomplicate it. I'm so excited to be able to do what it is that I do every single day. To be able to help people to look better and feel better. to be able to overcome health challenges, to transform their life and how they view and how they take care of their life. I never get tired of being able to hear the stories and the miracles. There's not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't give us a story in some way about their life and their health improving. And it's especially rewarding when I see a patient who their whole family gets it. And when I say gets it, I mean they totally embrace the idea that their future does have the potential to be healthy. And when these parents and their whole families are under care and they're coming in, these kids grow up like I was, to where they don't know what it's like to go in and out of the doctor's offices. They don't know what it's like to be able to experience all this sickness and suffering like so many other kids. And it's not, once again, because I'm treating or healing anything. It's because when their bodies are working the way they're created, their bodies do the healing. And so it's just a great reward for me every single day to be able to do what it is that I do. You see, B.J. Palmer, the developer of chiropractic, years ago said, "You never know how far-reaching something you may say, think, or do today will affect the lives of countless millions tomorrow." So what is it that you want when it comes to your health in your life? What is it that you desire your future state of health to be like? Is what you're doing right now enough to move you in the direction of your dreams? If so, that's great. Praise God. If it's not, however, the question becomes, is your excuse good enough to be worth it? God bless.